Hello everyone and welcome back to The Gods and Myths of Northern Europe, Part 12. Now, before we get into it, today is my birthday, I'm turning 22, so I thought I'd make a treat to you guys and make two videos today. So I'll be posting one right now at daytime, and then after I get back from a concert, I will be making another video. So, keep in mind of that. So, let's get into the Valkyries of Odin. In Snorri's description of the afterlife for warriors, there are certain beings who form a link between Odin and the slain, in between the worlds of the living and dead. These are the female spirits called Valkyries, who wait on the warriors in Valhalla, and no description of the god of battle can be complete without them. In the descriptions of the poets, they appear as women who wear armor and ride on horseback, passing swiftly over sea and land. They carry out Odin's commands while the battle rages, giving victory according to his will. And at the close they lead the slaughtered warriors to Valhalla. Sometimes, on the other hand, they are pictured as the wives of living heroes. Human princesses are said to become Valkyries, though they were the priestesses of some cult. Valkyrie names occur frequently in the work of the 9th and 10th century poets. Many like Hildur, Hlokk, Gudr are simply synonyms for battle. Eventually, an elaborate literary picture has been built up by the generations of poets and storytellers, in which several different conceptions can be discerned. We recognize something akin to the Norns, spirits who decide the destinies of men, to the seeresses who could protect men in battle by their spells, to the powerful female guardian spirits attached to certain families, bringing luck to a youth under their protection. Even to certain women who armed themselves and fought like men, for whom there is some historical evidence from the regions around the Black Sea. There may be a memory also of priestesses of the god of war, women who officiated at the sacrificial rites when captives were put to death after battle. The name Valkyrie means literally chooser of the slain. In the 11th century, an Anglo-Saxon bishop, Wulfstan, included choosers of the slain in a blacklist of sinners, witches, and evildoers in his famous Sermo Lupo. All the other classes whom he mentions are human ones. It seems unlikely that he has introduced mythological figures as well. In the 10th century ship funeral on the Volga, the old woman who organized the killing of the slave girl was called the Angel of Death, and had two other women called her daughters in attendance. She was described as an old Hunnish woman, massive and grim to look upon. It would hardly be surprising if strange legends grew up around such women, who must have been kept apart from their kind for their gruesome duties, since it was often decided by lot which prisoners should be killed. The idea that the god chose his victims through the instrument of the priestesses must have been a familiar one, apart from the obvious assumption that some were chosen to fall in war. It seems that from early times the heathen Germans believed in fierce female spirits, doing the commands of the war god, stirring up disorder, taking part in battle, and seizing and perhaps even devouring the slain. Wulfstan used the word Welkurge, and the same word occurs some centuries earlier in a number of Old English word lists. Some which should go back to the 8th century. I cannot pronounce that word, I'm so sorry. Chooser of the slain is given as the Old English equivalent for the names of the Furies, Uranus, Tisiphone, and Electo. Early evidence still comes from the north of England. Two votive stones were found at housesteads on Hadrian's Wall in 1883, one of which reads, dedicated to the god Mars, Thinkisus, and to the two Alexigae, Bede and Fimeline. The other refers to Mars and the two Alexiges, and third fragment was found, which may have been associated with either or both these descriptions. Showing a war god with shield and spear, and a bird beside him in 1920, an altar was discovered at the same fort. and this also bore an inscription dedicated to the Alasige, calling them goddesses, and giving them the names of Biotili and Fragabi. These names have been interpreted as the ruler of battle and giver of freedom, and they would be suitable ones for Valkyries to bear. The conception of a company of women associated with battle among the heathen Germans is further implied by two spells which have survived into Christian times. One comes from Merseburg in South Germany, and is a charm for the unloosing of fetters. It describes how certain women called the Idisi, Old Norse from Disir meaning goddess, sat together, some fastening bonds, some holding back to the host, some tugging on fetters. It includes with the words, "Leap forth from the bonds, escape from the enemy." With this may be compared as Old English charm against a sudden pain. It seems at first to be a humble and innocent charm, until the pain is visualized as caused by the spears of certain supernatural women. At this point, it suddenly takes on heroic stature. Loud were they, low, loud, riding over the hill. They were of one mind, riding over the land. Shield thyself now, to escape from this ill. Out, little spear, if heroine thou be. Under the shield of light linden, I took up my stand, when the mighty women made ready their power, and set out their screaming spears. Later in the spell weapons they shot by the gods are mentioned, and the impression is that here we have what was originally a battle spell, like the Merseburg one, which has come down in the world until it could be evoked by a prosaic stitch in the side. A second suggestion of supernatural women in another charm is the term Sagewif, meaning victory women, used of a swarm of bees. The unbinding and binding of fetters, the hurling of spears, and the power to ride through the air are all activities associated with Odin. In Havmal, he utters a spell to provide fetters for adversaries. These are not likely to be physical bonds, but rather fetters for the mind, of the kind described in Ynglinga Saga. Odin knew how to act so that his foes in battle became blind or deaf or panic-stricken, and their weapons pierced no more than wands. A vivid example of such a state is found in one of the sagas from Iceland, Harbor Saga. The hero Hord was escaping from his enemies when he was suddenly overcome by what he described as the Warfetter. This was due to hostile magic. The Warfetter came upon Hord, and he cut himself free once instead a second time. The Warfetter came upon him a third time. Then the men managed to hem him up and surround him with a ring of enemies. But he fought his way out of the ring, and slew 3 men in so doing. The Warfighter came upon Horde, and he comes... Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. This must not be confused with the onset of panic in battle, for Horde was an exceptionally brave man and a splendid fighter. It seems rather to be a kind of paralysis, like that experienced in a nightmare. 3 times he succeeded in shaking it off, but when it overcame him for the 4th time, he was surrounded again and killed. It is noteworthy that one of the Valkyrie names is Herflutter, meaning Warfetter, the same word as in the passage above. The suggested interpretation of one of the names of the Alsalge, Fragabi, as giver of freedom may be relevant in this connection. Old Norse literature has left us with a picture of dignified Valkyries, riding on horses and armed with spears, but a different, cruder picture of supernatural women connected with blood and slaughter has also survived. Female creatures, sometimes of gigantic size, pour blood over a district where a battle is to take place. They are sometimes described as carrying troughs of blood or riding on wolves, or are seen rowing a boat through a rain of blood falling from the sky. Such figures are usually omens of fighting and death. They sometimes appear to men in dreams, and they are described more than once in the Skaldic verse of the 10th and 11th centuries. The most famous example of this kind of dream vision is said in Njal Saga to have been seen before the Battle of Clontarf, fought at the in 1014. A group of women were seen weaving on a grisly loom, formed from men's entrails and weighted with severed heads. They were filling in a background of grey spears with a weft of crimson. They were called the names of Valkyries. A poem is quoted in the saga, which is said to have been spoken by them. In the course of this, they declare that it is they who decide who is to die in the coming battle. We weave, the web of the spear. As on goes the standard of the brave, we shall not let him lose his life. The Valkyries have power to choose the slain. All is sinister now to see. A cloud of blood moves over the sky. The air is red with the blood of men, as the battle women chant their song. This poem, known as the Spear Lay, may not necessarily have been composed about the Battle of Clontarf. It has been suggested that some other battle in Ireland originally inspired it. In any case, we have here, at a relatively early date, a picture of Valkyries, battle women, which is in accordance with the other descriptions of terrible female creatures working out the fate of wars in battle, and bringing down blood and carnage upon them. Other figures showing a close resemblance to Valkyries of this kind are found in stories of the Celtic peoples. Two goddesses, Morrigu and Bob, are mentioned in the Irish sagas. They were wont to appear on the battle, or were sometimes visible before a battle. They could take on the form of birds of prey, and they were accustomed to utter prophecies of war and slaughter. The association of these battle women with the birds of prey who flock to a battlefield is interesting. In the Old English poem Exodus, the adjective choosing the slain is used of the raven. In one of the earliest Old Norse poems, Hrimsmal, is in the form of a dialogue between a raven and a Valkyrie. The raven, together with the wolf, is mentioned in practically all of the descriptions of a battle in Old English poetry, and both were regarded as the creatures of the war god Odin. Such striking resemblances between the figures of supernatural battlewomen, the literature of the Scandinavians and heathen Germans, on one hand, and the Celtic peoples on the other, are significant. Donahue was led to suggest that there was a belief in fierce battle spirits connected with the god of war, at a time when the Celts and Germans were in close contact with one another, during the Roman period. There is little doubt that the figure of the Valkyrie has developed in Norse literature into something more dignified and less bloodthirsty, as a result of the work of poets over a considerable period. The alarming and terrible creatures who have survived in the literature in spite of this seem likely, however, to be closer in character to the choosers of the slain than they were visualized in heathen times. Okay, so that is all for right now. We will pick up again with the Berserks of Odin. I'm sorry that I was reading really choppily. I'm having trouble breathing right now, so I hope that wasn't too annoying for you. If you want to follow my social media, links will be in the description, and if you want to like, comment, subscribe, or whatever, feel free to do so. I will see you in the next video.